Hello, I'm starting section 5, part 2 on page 157. The chapter is called Colors. Julia opens a metal box. I see a row of little squares, green, blue, red, black, yellow, purple, orange. The colors seem to glow. She pulls out a brush with a thin tuft of tail at its end. She dips the brush in water and wets the paper, then taps at the red square. When the brush meets the damp paper, pink petals of color unfurl like morning flowers. I can't take my eyes off the magical brush. For a moment, I'm not thinking about Ruby and Mac and the claw stick and Stella. Almost. Julia touched red again, then blue, and there, suddenly, is the purple of a ripe grape. She touches the blue, and her paper turns to summer sky. Black and white. Now I see that she is painting a picture of Ruby. I can make out her floppy ears, her thick legs. Julia stops painting. She takes a few steps back, hands on her hips, gazes at her work. She scowls. It's not right, she says. She glances over her shoulder at me. I try to look encouraging. Julia starts to crumple up the paper, then reconsiders. Instead, she slides it into my cage at the spot where my glass is broken. Here you go, says Julie. She says, a Julia original. That'll be worth millions someday. Gingerly, I pick up the paper. I do not eat a single bit of it. Oh, hey, I almost forgot. Julia runs to her backpack. She pulls out 3 plastic jars, one yellow, one blue, one red. She opens the jar, and an odd, not food smell hits my nose. Julia pushes the jars one by one through the opening. Then she slides some paper through. These are called finger paints, she says. My aunt gave them to me, but really I'm too old for finger painting. I stick a finger into the red jar. The paint is thick as mud. It's cool and smooth like bananas underfoot. I pop my finger into my mouth. It's not exactly ripe mango, but it's not bad. Julia laughs. You don't eat it, you paint with it. She grabs a piece of paper and presses her fingers on it. See, like this. I place my finger on a piece of paper. I lift it. A red mark is there. I get a bigger glob from the pot and slap my hand down. On the page, when I pull my hand off the paper, it's red. Its red twin stays behind. This isn't like the ghostly handprint of my glass, the ones my visitors leave behind. This handprint can't be easily wiped away. I like how he explains handprints as ghost handprints on glass. So, when you touch glass, like a car window or, any kind of window, or if your hands are a little dirty and you touch like a glass cup and it leaves behind a print, but it's not like a bold print. You can't see it very well, but a ghostly handprint. I like how he describes that. That's good. Page 161, A Bad Dream. I lie awake, peeling dried red paint off my fingertips. Bob, who accidentally walked on one of my paintings, is licking his red paws. Every so often I glance over at the empty ring. The claw stick glints in the moonlight. Stop! No! Ruby's frantic cries startle me. Ruby, I call. You're having a bad dream. You're okay, you're safe. Where's Stella? She's asked, gulping air. Before I can answer, she says, Never mind, I remember now. Go back to sleep, Ruby, I say. You had a hard day. I can't go back to sleep, she says. I'm afraid I'll have the same dream. There was a sharp stick and it hurt. I look at Bob and he looks back at me. Oh, Ruby says. Oh, Mac. She puts her trunk between the bars. Do you think, she hesitates. Do you think Mac is mad I hurt him today? I considered lying, but girls are terrible liars. Probably, I finally say. He ran away after that, Ruby says. Bob gives a scornful laugh. Crawled away is more like it. We are quite quiet for a while. Branches claw at the roof. A light rain drums. One of the parrots murmurs something in her sleep. Ruby breaks the silence. Ivan, I smell something funny. He can't help it, Bob says. I believe she's referring to the finger paints Julia gave me, I say. What do you think Bob means by he can't help it when Ruby says, Ivan, I smell something funny? It's kind of a little funny joke there. All right, so he can't help it. I believe she's referring to finger paints. We read that. What are finger paints? Ruby asked. You can make pictures with them, I explained. Can you make a picture of me? Maybe someday. I remember Julia's picture, the one that will be worth $1 million. I hold it up to the glass. Look, it's you. Julia made it. It's hard to see, Ruby says. There's not much moonlight. Why do I have two trunks? I examine the picture. Those are feet. Why do I have 2 feet? That's called artistic license, Bob says. Ruby sighs. Could you tell me another story? She asks. I don't think I can ever go back to sleep. I told you all I remember, I say with a helpless shrug. Then tell me a new story, she says. Make something up. I try to think, but my thoughts kept returning to Mac and his claw stick. Anything yet? Ruby asks. I'm working on it. Ivan, Ruby presses. Bob said you're going to save me. I I search for true words. I'm working on that too. Ivan, Ruby says in a low voice. I can barely hear her. I have another question. I can tell from the sound of her voice that this will be a question I don't want to answer. Ruby taps her trunk against the rusty iron bars of her door. Do you think, she asks, that I'll die in this domain someday like Aunt Stella? Once again, I consider lying, but when I look at Ruby, the half-formed words die in my throat. Not if I can help it, I say instead. I feel something tighten in my chest, something dark and hot, and it's not a domain, I add. I pause, and then I say it. It's a cage. I think that's kind of like an important part there. She asks if she'll die in her domain, and he thinks about it, and his chest tightens, something dark and hot, and he says it's not a domain, it's a cage. I want you guys to think about that. We'll talk about it in Wednesday's meeting. The story. I look at the ring layered with fresh sawdust. I look at the skylight and at the half-hidden moon. I just thought of a story, I say. It is made up. It's a made-up story or a true one, Ruby asks. True, I say, I hope. Ruby leans against the bars. Her eyes hold the pale moon in them, the way still pond holds stars. Once upon a time, I say, there was a baby elephant. She was smart and brave, and she needed to go to a place called a zoo. What's a zoo? Ruby asks. A zoo, Ruby, is a place where humans make amends. A good zoo is a place where humans care for animals and keep them safe. Did the baby elephant get to the zoo? Ruby asks softly. I don't answer right away. Yes, I say at last. How did she get there? Ruby asks. She had a friend, I say, a friend who made a promise. Okay, last chapter. How? It takes a long time, but finally Ruby returns to sleep. Ivan, Bob whispers, what you said about the zoo? How are you going to do it? Suddenly, I feel as if I could sleep for 1,000 days. I don't know, I admit. You think of something, Bob says confidently, his voice trailing off as his eyes close. What if I don't? I ask, but Bob is already asleep. His little red feet dance, and I know he is running in his dreams. Okay, so that's the end for section 5, and I'll see you in Wednesday's meeting.